Hello everyone, this is the third video for the Cold Snap of Power Occultist. Now the past couple of days have been a bit slower on my end, as I have not had too much time to play, but I wanted to make an update video regardless, because there has been some progression on my end at least. One of the big problems that the build was having, that I kind of mentioned in the past couple of videos, is Bonechill application. Bonechill is a very powerful addition for any cold build, and it is kind of mandatory to put in there, as it increases the amount of cold damage taken by enemies. Now normally I would put the Bonechill on a regular cold snap and kind of let the chilling ground do its thing. However, we can't really do that with this build, since although their overrides are different, power charges versus frenzy charges, they still share the same cooldown. So over the past couple of days I've been messing around with this a lot. I was using Frostblink with increased AoE and Bonechill. I was contemplating going back to summon Skitterbot's Bonechill with a Profane Proxy to imply Enfeeble. However, I wasn't really happy with any of those solutions. The Frostblink one was very inconsistent and honestly more dangerous than not most of the time. Using your one movement tool to apply a damage up is not the greatest thing in the world. The Profane Proxy approach gave up a very powerful ring slot that I wasn't very happy with. Also, it cost even more mana reservation, so that wasn't really a good solution either. But thankfully, as I was messing around with this on stream a couple of days ago, one of my viewers mentioned some very useful tech. Over here, we have the Cold Mastery, and there's a very useful notable that I kind of glanced over a couple of times without realizing what it could do for the build. And that is chills from your hits always reduce action speed by at least 10%. This basically means that it's always going to apply at least a 10% chill, from what I understand. That is a very nice passive to have. However, combined with the fact that we are running a Herald of Ice, which applies spell cold damage to any and every ability, if we combine this with a Storm Brand, this Storm Brand is now going to always do a little bit of cold damage and therefore always going to apply a chill. Since it's now chilling, we can now apply Bonechill to the Storm Brand and therefore increase the damage taken with Bonechill by applying our Storm Brand. We were already using our Storm Brand effectively anyway, so it slots in very nicely, and thanks to lots of sources of increased effect of chill, like over here, we end up picking 40% here. There's another 44%, I think, on Bonechill itself. Causes Bonechill, or Storm Brand at the very least, to now apply an 18% chill effect, which turns into 18% increased cold damage taken. I've been testing this out so far, and honestly, over the past couple of days, it's been a lot smoother, both in uptime, because Storm Brand attaches to an enemy and then kind of just sticks to it. It's one less button to add to the build, which is nice. I get to save my Frostblink for actual movement abilities, and overall it just feels a lot nicer to play with, so I'm very happy to have that problem at least sorted out, and overall that change already made the build feel much more comfortable. Now on the side of the gear upgrades, there have been a few changes. I've just started going more into damage and cast speed with the rings. Opal rings give elemental damage, going cast speed. I'm going to be upgrading these over time, but for now I think this will do. Same thing over here, it's just cast speed. I'm working on some that will have cast speed and cold damage, using the Deafening Essences of Hatred to apply a 35% increased amount of cold damage. If you then use elemental damage catalysts, that'll scale it up to close to 70% elemental damage, along with a high cast speed roll, should be a really powerful addition to the build. Probably the biggest upgrade so far is the gloves that I showed last time around. The Fractured Alva gloves with suppression on there now. I managed to unveil life and regen mana. The life does nothing, of course, for the build, but the flat mana regen is actually pretty helpful in sustaining our mana. And then, of course, the cast speed while focused mod, because I really like that. Due to the passive, we no longer apply cold exposure on hit with cold damage, the 10% chance. So we had to take it on gloves instead of the suppress that I had before that. It's honestly not a bad change, also because this applies cold exposure on hit immediately instead of a 10% chance, so the uptime actually feels a lot nicer because of that as well. And overall, these gloves I am just very happy with and will likely keep until the end of this character. I think the only other change so far has been the belt, as I tried to make myself a nice belt with some energy shields, some strength, resistance or two. And then slam an open prefix with a Redeemer Exalt, as the only options here are cold damage, damage with hits against chilled enemies, and increased evasion rating. In this case I slammed increased evasion rating, not the happiest with it, but I have another one of these stocked up. So I'll be probably trying to make another one of these pretty soon. As for how the rest of the character is progressing, it's going pretty smooth. I managed to obtain a Grace Spell Suppression Watcher's Eye, which helps caps spell suppression, along with the boots and gloves that we have. I'm currently still trying to figure out the cluster jewel situation. I would really like to have disorienting display in the build, as being able to apply like a global blind is going to be very, very useful. Along with extra jewel sockets will be incredibly powerful later down the line. But I'm not 100% sure what passives to drop yet. I'm thinking of dropping my starting cluster, but it is a lot of damage, especially with the Militant Faith, the devotion modifiers there. It's really hard to give those up for now. Everything else is honestly going pretty well. I'm still trying to craft up a few pieces of gear, especially on the tankiness side of things. I would like to get a Supreme Spiked Shield to help me with a bit more on the evasive side of things, give me the last little bits of percentage of spell suppression that I need. I think I'm currently on 99% spell suppress. I could divine a few pieces of my gear, but I'd rather just save the divines, and switching to a Supreme Spiked Shield doesn't seem too bad. It can still roll the critical strike chance for spells, it can still roll pretty high energy shield numbers, and it will just add an absolute ton of evasion that the build could use pretty well. I'm still trying to get a chest piece and a helmet crafted up with the Gravicius and Corel mods on them, just so we can get some extra physical mitigation to turn that into elemental damage, and I'm just trying to increase the amount of energy shield available to us a bit. I do have plans of maybe going for an Adorn at the one point in the private league, but that is going to take quite a bit of effort to get done, and I'm honestly not sure if it's going to be worth the investment for now. As for the character itself, bossing has been going great. With the increased damage from the last episode, I'm now consistently running Maven. It's going very smoothly, getting a lot of deathless kills done. Usually there's a death or two just because I'm bad at video games, I'm afraid. I'm usually downing Maven at this point in about like 1 memory game in the final phase, maybe 2 memory games. So you have the memory game at the start and then usually kill her after that. Sometimes I have an extra memory game, but honestly very doable. I did my first tier 17 map today as well. That was an experience. It had some pretty interesting mods, something with like impale, reflect damage, things like that. It had a hasted mod on it, which made the boss fight, Uber Lycia, I think it is, very, very interesting. That was definitely something to experience for the first time, especially with like 50% increased attack speed. It took a few portals to get her down, as there were just a few things that were catching me off guard. The area had petrification statues with increased attack speed. Really not a fun combination, I can tell you that much, as it caught me out a couple of times where I just ended up being petrified within like half a second and then ended up dying because of it. But we got the fight down. Things are going pretty smoothly in that aspect. I am going to start working on getting a bit more defensive gear and then start doing a lot more tier 17 farming, the tier 17s that have been stocking up over the past couple of days at the very least. I'm working on just farming Maven, Elder, and continuing from there on out. Still trying to get my hands on Woke Spell Cascade. I've run a couple of Mavens already, but over the next few days I really hope to be ramping that up, trying to get that Woke Spell Cascade before trying to take down an Uber. We'll see how that ends up going. But yeah, this was supposed to be a bit of a quick update. I think I ended up rambling for a pretty long time anyway, sorry about that, but that is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, hope you enjoyed the quick update, and until next time, peace!